So how to love your mother. It's meant to be our mother and your mother all at the same time. Like that. Oh, we should have done that Peter Pan song. Your mother and mine. And I would sing it just like this in a trembly old record voice. So how to love our mother. Mother's Day can be a bit awkward. That's the first thing I would like to presence. Has anyone ever experienced this? Mother's Day can be a little awkward, or if you didn't experience it for you, you may have experienced it for your friend. And then, of course, with our current news cycle that we're in, Mother's Day is particularly, for me at least, particularly charged today. So I always like, at least in the last many years, to try to create a very respectful Mother's Day celebration. And that can be difficult because I want to include everyone who loves their mom or loves being a mom. And, because you should get to have a church service too. And then there are other folks who think the word mother is very problematic, and might prefer birthing people, right? And I want to include you too. And then there are other people who think, well, I can see where you're going there, but man, do we have to change the language every 2 weeks? That's hard. And I want to include you too. And then there are families with nurturing parents who nobody falls into the role of who's mommy and who's father. And we should include y'all too. So Mother's Day, let's do our best to have a respectful and inclusive and joyous celebration together. And we also have to include some of the current challenges that we're all facing, or else, they'll just sit there unincluded. So with that, we'll see how my little plan for a sermon today works. Ooh, I made a syllabus for you. So here's our syllabus. Introduction, that's what we're doing. Hey, that's nice, check. Okay, then we're gonna do, doesn't it bring just dopamine? Put a check mark on that. Oh, I don't think I can do that without totally ruining the presentation, or I would put a check mark on there right now. It's option V, in case you didn't know that on your Mac, option V. Option 8 is a bullet point. So this is how you can do fun stuff on your Notes app. Okay, then in just a moment, we're gonna have a calm and quaint intellectual discussion on the Buddhist practice of mother recognition. And that's just to have some pleasant, neutral brain candy, so that, and loving kindness training. Then we're going to do a resilience and compassion meditation, because I don't know about you, but some of us need every opportunity we have to cultivate resilience and compassion. So I'm going to teach you a really fun one that we'll practice. And then this is stacked up very intentionally. Then we're going to take a look at some of the challenges that we as kind and loving people, or people who aspire to be kind and loving some days, are facing together as a nation and a world. And then we're going to work on some strategizing. Okay, this syllabus is intentionally created because one of the points of this sermon is that when we try to tackle the challenges that face us without first filling up our resilience tank and unhindering our compassion, we're more likely to feel overwhelmed and disempowered than we are to feel empowered. And for many of us, we're so used to that state of affairs. We're used to be bombarded by news and then bombarded by learned helplessness and stuff like that, that feels normal. It feels normal to say, oh, this came down the pipe from your fearless leaders, and to have the system go, what is there to do but to alternate between collapse and rage? And there are other paths, but what's that thing, that the kids are saying now, the leftists that I follow on social media, the system, quote unquote, won't teach you the tools you need to dismantle it. And so most of us were not taught how to cultivate resilience and loving kindness toward engagement and activism that will change the status quo, because the people who are in charge of most of what you learn would like the status quo to remain as it is. So we're gonna see what happens with a little empowerment. So first, what they say in the trauma proofing your brain course that I'm currently taking is don't try to start with like love and compassion, just start with something neutral. So we're going to have an intellectual discussion about the history of the mother recognition practice in Buddhism and its bearing on the cultivation of loving kindness. That's fun because it's got the word mother in it. So in Buddhist practice, I sometimes like the days when I get to pick Buddhist practice to talk about because I don't usually have to use my notes very much. They have a practice for developing loving kindness, which is called the Sevenfold Mother Recognition. And it's called that because the way it goes, I don't think I can remember all 7 steps exactly off the top of my head, but the way it goes is first, you think about mom. And this is supposed to develop all sorts of warm fuzziness in you. And then you imagine that everybody in the world, okay, it's Buddhist, so they imagine that like in your past life, everybody you run into was your mom. And they have this whole logic of, well, there were infinite past lives and infinite people, so they could have all been your mommy. And you try to cultivate, after these warm fuzzies, if you can get it some gratitude going, you cultivate this sense of like, well, don't you want to protect your mom from harm? Don't you want her to be happy? And it's this way of stretching the mind and heart that if you practice this and it works for you, we'll talk about why it doesn't work for some folks, but if it works for you, you'll find this experience like one Buddhist teacher described, where like you'll be on the subway and you'll be looking around at the people, and whether you believe in past lives or not, you'll have this sense of like, oh my gosh, like there's this tender, sweet quality that comes up in your heart looking at random strangers. Some of them, if you had a conversation over a Kool-Aid or a beer or a coffee or something like that, you would really despise their point of view. But despite all that, your heart is going like, oh, I would really like to protect you. I love you. So the mother recognition. So now in modern times, this doesn't work as well sometimes as it was supposed to in ancient times. And that's because like in America, right? These Buddhist teachers came over to America and then they're like, hey, now just think about mom and this will make your heart open so big, and the students were like, sorry, when I think about mom, my heart doesn't open. And the Buddhist teachers, because a lot of the time these were monks, and they came not 100% of the time. It's not a cultural generalization, but they came from a culture that prizes family life. And then at about 7 or 8 years old, they were swooped away to the monastery. So before they became rebellious teenagers, in a family where grandmas and the aunts are also like watching mom and helping out and stuff like that, here's this image of a nurturer, and it should really open your heart if you've got all those factors in play. But then you come to America and our path of individuation is laid out a little bit differently. And we get some people whose moms were really not nice in some cases. Like it's not just that they were rebellious teenagers. Some moms did not have the training to be able to keep themselves regulated or their hearts open. And you get what in modern research we would call an insecure attachment style. So this is, and some of us identify this way. We've had to, if we have secure attachment, it's earned secure attachment that we've done in adult relationships. So an insecure attachment style is you think of attachment figures and there's some urge to push off of them, or there's some sort of like anxiety about whether they will actually be there for you, or there's some ambiguity of like you want that connection and also at the same time you don't trust it. And this is just, I hope this is fun for your brain, because they say in the trauma work, start with something that's just fun. Oh, that's curious. Because it explains why if you are trying to develop this loving kindness, it's like, oh, well, think about an attachment figure. And it doesn't work for you. It's because attachment figures, for all of us, don't automatically equate to trust and security. and unconditional positive regard. So this terminology, unconditional positive regard, is one that I want to share with you. This was developed by Carl Rogers, the founder of Rogerian psychotherapeutic methods. And he felt, and the reason why this therapy works pretty good, is he felt that the therapist's job was to supply for the client this sense of unconditional positive regard. It's not permissiveness. Those of you who have studied like conscious parenting, right? It's not, well, you can't be authoritarian, so you've got to be permissive. No, it's more what they call like an authoritative parent. You know that no matter what you do, they'll love you. And thus you can make boundaries in a healthy way. So what we have started to find in research on attachment theory, in Rogerian therapy, is that we human beings need secure attachment figures. We need to feel as if unconditional positive regard is coming at us somehow. Thus, you found yourself at UUFLG this morning. So what's neat? Okay, then some of us might go like, well, bummer, dude. I still haven't found anybody to give me unconditional positive regard. Does that mean I can't open my heart? Why, no, there is good news. Because when teaching these types of meditations, we are often advised to remember someone in your life who was a source of unconditional positive regard. Does anybody in here, are any of you so privileged that you have someone in your life you could remember who was like, wow, they just really had, oh, am I the only one? Oh, okay, good. They really had my best interest in heart. That one uncle, that one grandparent, or it could be that one dog. It could be that one dog. They had my best interest at heart, even when they scratched that door after I let them out thrice, and they kept on scratching, and the landlord was mad. I know they still, down at the core, had my best interest at heart. There's this old hypnotherapist, Milton Erickson, had a client he was trying to take through this for some reason, this kind of process, and the person could not think of anyone in their life. And we'll come across this sometimes. Sometimes it feels that way to us, or you may have a friend you're trying to coach through a rough time, and they're like, there's nobody who even cares about you. And your thought will, like mid-sip on your margarita, will be like, no one? Not even little old me? But it feels that way. So Erickson said, had them create, to imagine like a wise uncle. And what we know now is that this is part of how your brain works. That the brain doesn't really discriminate between what's imagined and what is a memory. Many of our memories are partially hallucinated, and many of the things we imagine in our mind affect our physiology as if we were experiencing them in real life. Pretty neat. So you have in many religious traditions, like in the Buddhist tradition, your first practices, at least in the fancier Buddhist traditions, there are some unfancy ones where they don't do this, but you'll imagine these deity figures, or this is a solitary one. This is Yum Chenmo, the great mother of wisdom. Sometimes they'll imagine like the whole sky is full of these divine beings. But there's a specific thing you have to imagine, is that they're smiling at you. They're so proud of you. They're radiating love at you, and they just want you to be happy. And this is training number one in a lot of these traditions, because it's known that if we can help ourselves create that sense of safety, of gratitude, and that unconditional positive regard is coming this away, that's the foundation for creating this sense that unconditional positive regard can come out that away. So we stoke ourselves up with this feeling that love is possible, that the universe loves us. In one of Reza Aslan's books, I think on the Brief History of God, I think it was called, something like that, he talks about how this may have been what the Christians figured out that helped their religion like succeed in ways that no other religion had succeeded before, is that there's buddy Jesus. Like, according to what he proposes, at no time before did religions conceive that God was like your homie, And like, you could just, oh yeah, go in your room and be like, God, I had a crummy day. And the God's there like, my child, all should be well. Trust in me. Bring it in, dude. Because there's something so powerful in that, whether you can find it through your cat, whether you have to do like a Kabbalistic move and spell God backwards, and then you've got an attachment figure in DOG, whether it's a visualized image, there's something so resourceful about believing that love is coming toward you that it seems kind of like it's a fundamental human nutrient. Okay, so that's your intellectual discussion. How curious. So I'd like to invite you to do a practice with me. Now, with all that, you don't have to believe in God. You don't have to even imagine some wise uncle. Like, no, I don't like that. In cognitive behavioral therapy and self-compassion work, they recommend you think of a wise friend. And you just imagine, like, if you can't love yourself that day, you imagine, well, what if I had a really wise friend and they could love me? So whatever works for you, whether you think your wise friend, whether you think the divine, whether you think of that one doggo who was just such a good doggo, whatever it is, we're going to try to cultivate this feeling of unconditional positive regard. Are you ready? Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. So I want to show you a technique to help untraumify your brain. And we need to do this. This is section 2 on our syllabus. No, section 3 on our syllabus. Section 1 was the introduction. Section 2 was curious Buddhist things. Section 3, resilience and compassion training. So there's lots of trauma-inducing material out there. I don't know if you noticed. And even if you're in such a privileged position as to not be directly impacted by it, there's such a thing as secondary trauma, which is this neat thing that compassionately oriented folks, we look at the pain of others and we feel it in our own body. And the thing you need to watch out for is that sometimes that can actually take a toll on your health, on your sense of empowerment. So we need the tools to be able to not shut down that heart and go like, oh, I just can't hear about anybody else's pain or collapse, but to actually be able to take that empathic distress and turn it into empowering compassion. These are a couple tools I'd like to invite you to try. The first one is called, it comes from the EMDR tradition, and it's called the butterfly hug. So I'd like you, if you're willing, to make your hands into a little butterfly like this. Doesn't matter which one, the yin and the yang are combined. And then you're going to put that on here, and I'm going to watch out for my microphone. And then you're going to tap one side and the other, and it gets to go at whatever speed you want. And there's something in this we have found, we'll do this for a bit, that like this kind of side to side rhythmicness actually takes the brain out of worst case scenarios or whatever and brings it into the fact that this present moment is pretty groovy. Sometimes they'll invite people to do affirmations here. So it could be something like, may I be safe. May my friends be well. May I experience love or gratitude. Okay, and then when you feel complete with that, you can let it wind down. This is a little self-regulation technique, but leave your hands there once it's wound down. And your second technique is to imagine that these hands of yours, that some force of unconditional positive regard or unconditional love is flowing through these hands of yours. So this could be yourself, loving yourself. Or you could imagine that like love at large in the universe, as you experienced it through that dog or through an imagined wise friend. Just imagine that it's pouring into you. You could even feel that it soothes different parts of your body or different aspects of your heart. And then when you're ready, you can let those hands down. Just notice, did your state change? Do you feel different now than you did before we started this technique? So just a couple of techniques to help get us into the present. I feel pretty good, actually. That was quite restful. So thanks for practicing with me. You've now been bolstered. You've been bolstered. Let's talk challenges. Okay, so you'll remember last week, you might remember, but last week, one of the things that I was on about as our Beltane celebration, my recommendation was that you attune to the regenerative energies of spring by going to the drawdown.ecochallenge.org and finding out. So here's this whole big old thing of the various solutions proposed by the Drawdown Initiative, Project Drawdown. And this could look a little overwhelming, especially in this tiny words up on the screen, but they made this thing called the Eco Challenge. And I'm gonna try to get it to stream onto the TV in a second, whereby you like click on one little one, and then you go, hey, I think this month I'll plant some trees. And then you like click that as your little challenge, and then you get to go back. Dopamine inducing is coming. You get to go back and go, I planted 1 trees. And then it makes this little confetti explosion on the screen, and it's really good for your brain. So I want to see, I wasn't able to do this last week, but I want to see if I can get this up, and I wonder if I can invite Dave to play a soothing music while I fiddle with the technology. It'll help me, even if it doesn't help anyone else. All right. Bum, bum. Never has that song been so soothing. So here is drawdown.ecochallenge.org, and then I signed up for the whole thing so that I could show it to you, so it has some other stuff down there, but that's what you want to enter. And so you have various tracks. Let's go back to all the action categories. So you've got all these categories. I don't know if you can see this, but there's an action track, building resilience. There's healing and renewal. There's electricity. There's transportation. There's food, agriculture, and land use, etc. So would anybody like to pick which one we look at, class? Land use and food. Yeah? Okay, here we go. Now I have to go find them again. Well, I see food right here, so we'll start with that. Okay, so if you've got this in here, you have your choice. You could reduce animal products and lean toward eating a plant-rich diet. And after, what's his name, Mohan Gurunathan, after Gurunathan spoke, I heard a lot of folks tried some new plant-rich recipes. So you could, if you wanted to, you could go in there and click, oh, I already do this. That was that little button down there that you can't see. Okay, so you could do that. You could support local food systems. So this is, I will source blank % of my food from local producers each day. This could include signing up for a local CSA, buying from a farmer's market, visiting a food co-op, blah, 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 blah. Foraging, you could go foraging or grow your own ingredients. Who already does any of these? Does anybody join a CSA sometimes? Okay. Any foragers? Chaotic wild foragers? Yes. Okay. Got you. Grow your own. Anybody grow their own oregano, spices, anything? Okay. So you're already doing some of this stuff in your mind. Just visualize a big gold star coming from your secure attachment figure. Pew, pew. A+. All right, what about zero waste cooking? This is one that a lot of us will aspire toward. I mostly do this now. This is fabulous because we compost, we stock, and then there's a little packaging on some of my ingredients that I could work on. And so, okay, that one's aspirational. Learn about local indigenous practices. There's a great book. I don't know if it's still timely, but you could read like the Ohlone Way. It's a really nice book about local indigenous practices, or other things. Support indigenous people's land management. Are you doing it yet? It's on the list. You could learn about it. You could do it. Support women-owned businesses. This is a climate change solution, and what a great one for Mother's Day. Support women-owned businesses. Research businesses owned by women. So this one, people of color or immigrants, this one's cool. I love the ones that say research, because some of them are like support women-owned businesses, and that's 3 steps away. And so my mind just goes like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, I can't. But when it's a research, I could research this afternoon. And then I'd be ready to support, because I researched who's who, which one's which. Okay, that's fun. Oh, mulch, 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 mulch your trees and plants. Mulching the base of trees and plants. Make friends with the ants. I just did my best there for you. Okay, and then what was our other one? We did food. What was the other one? Oh, 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 golly. How about one more then, Rob? Okay. Who is it? Transportation. Oh wait, that was my transformation dance. We're doing transportation, excuse me. Okay, so today you could learn about carbon offsets. You could learn about carbon offsets. How cool. You could use public transportation. You could improve a bus stop. I will improve a bus stop in my neighborhood by posting the stop schedule, adding seating or shelter, adding art or flowers, picking up litter, or implementing some other small improvement. That's so reachable. That's so reachable. Okay, what else? Oh, telepresence, high-speed rail. Instead of traveling by plane, I will find an alternative way to accomplish the goals of an upcoming trip. That one might be less reachable for some of you. And yet, you could, just plant the seed in there, plant the seed. Or maybe you have to take a plane on your trip and you want to do some carbon offsets in some way. These are things that you can start to do. You could purchase, that's the one I was looking for, purchase a carbon offset. You could research and advocate for high-speed rail. Wow, we could make a great leap into like 1999. Okay, advocate for greener vehicles. Some of you already do this. So try carpooling, go by bike, express support for walkable cities. That could be really cool in the Bay Area, I think. So all of these are some fun actions that you could take right now. Conduct virtual meetings. We do this at UUFLG. You kids at home, you're on one. So use muscle power. I like that. There are all sorts of really approachable solutions that like we're already doing, or ones that you could start doing this afternoon. And then there's solutions where like I love them because they say research. And you could start researching them this afternoon and start doing them next year. And then there's solutions that are like, oh, I don't have the power to do that yet, but perhaps I could start a group or join a group that has the power to do that, or vote for someone in November who has the power to do that, power that you supplied, lest you forget. So I wanted to share with you the Drawdown Eco Challenge as a reminder, because I didn't get to do this screen share last time, as a reminder that we can gamify our change tactics. We can gamify our change tactics. Okay, if you want to know more about gamifying, I highly recommend the book Super Better by Jane McGonigal. She talks about having to overcome a really severe concussion, a traumatic brain injury that left her. One of the things you don't usually know about traumatic brain injuries is that one of the symptoms is suicidal ideation. And she had to figure out that her brain was telling her it's a great idea to kill yourself, even though her mind did not believe that at all. And she was fatigued. And then when I'm fatigued, I like to read a book. Not allowed to do that when you've got a concussion. And so she had to figure out a way to want to stay alive and also engage in activities that would heal her brain injury. And she wrote a whole book about what she did. And how did she do it? She gamified her healing journey. So she was like, oh, hey, have a call with a friend. That gives you 3 power-up points. And here, eat your antioxidants and omega-3s. That gives you 5 power-up points. And because she gamified it, she was able to work through this really heavy stuff and bring herself back. I believe we could utilize this technology in facing challenges like climate change, as well as facing challenges like assaults on women and reproductive rights. Here are a couple of tactics you might encourage. I don't like to do tactics because we don't always agree on them. Like some of you might want to go out there and call your representative and tell them to end the filibuster and expand the Supreme Court, but not everybody agrees on that. There's a lot of complexity that might come from such a decision. So I'll leave that up to you, but here are some. You could tell the Senate Judiciary Committee to look into Kavanaugh and Gorsuch lying under oath during their hearings and work toward their impeachment. You could participate in one of many marches being organized for this coming May the 14th. Okay, I'm not sharing my Zoom. Hold on one second, please. Sorry, kids at home. We're almost back. There we go. Okay, you could educate yourself or others or work on your talking points for discussions to have in the future about assaults on women's reproductive rights. So this is one of those, for me, it was like that thing about, okay, I can't do anything today. You could research what you're going to do tomorrow. That is a very effective and important action. You could look into what your elected representatives are doing, if they're doing anything, and you could compare that with what you want them to be doing. So maybe you don't feel, oh, today I don't know what to call on, because you haven't looked at how their policies match up with what your choices, what your values call you to choose. That is an action that you can take, and then you put the check mark on it. Yom Chenmo, great mother of all Buddhas, sends a big gold star and an A+, and you are empowered to act tomorrow. Experiment with talking points you might use with your conservative-leaning friends, such as that this decision, the leaked opinion, right? We all know what I'm talking about, the Alito leaked opinion. It's based on a decision about privacy. It's based on a decision about privacy. Do you have any idea what kind of a can of worms that will open up, especially in the social media era, which was not the era that those privacy decisions were made in? Those are the precedents that they are flipping over. So with you guys, I might talk about the fact that the precedents they're flipping over, and they're using crap from witch trials in the 1500s to argue for this. And like the 1300s, when they say, oh, these don't have any precedents in history, they're using religious canon law from the 1300s to talk about legal precedent. With you guys, I'll talk all about that. And we'll get mad because down the road, it's an immediate assault on gay marriage. It's an immediate assault on interracial marriage. Those are the precedents that they're flipping over. But I want you to know your conservative friends don't understand any of that. You just sounded like blah, 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 Antifa, blah, blah, blah. And so you might want to tell them that these are about assaults on privacy, that everyone will know exactly what guns you own. They'll also know about your medications that you take, possibly for issues that you don't want your friends to know that you have. These might be, I don't know, they might be powerful talking points. Okay, you can, like we mentioned last week, get signed up for the the vote for the part of the solution that is long-term and systemic or systematic, long-term and within the system. So you do not have to figure out who to vote for and where to vote and who to call and what friends to support and where to send a little bit of change. Someone's already doing that work for you, and you can just jump on board. Okay, and then if that all stresses you out, there's a little butterfly that wants to give you a hug. I feel better already. But where these two are connected, why I want you to sign up for that eco challenge, why I want you to throw out any of these tactics that don't look fun to you. But what I hoped was to make some tactics that go like, oh, you mean I have to call someone? This introvert does not like that. They have a text app, but it's better if you call. So that one's like 2 days away. But I could research something this afternoon. Oh yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And so you've got some low-hanging fruit that you're already doing. You've got some medium hanging fruit that you only need a stepladder for. And then you've got the ones that you're going to need that like fruit basket thing that goes up in the tree. You've got every kind of fruit that you need. And With that, you can gamify it. The last point I'd like to make, and we're in overtime, so it's going to make it fast, is that when you gamify it, I think it's cute that on Mother's Day, I'm inviting you to act like a little child, to use the super learning techniques they taught us in kindergarten, where you make everything a song or a game, and then you learn it like that, like with the mind of a little 5-year-old. And then they stop all the super learning stuff at first grade and they make you rote memorize everything. I want you to bring back that little child wisdom, because in that there is enthusiasm. Make your fight for women's rights a game not in a way that minimizes it, not in a way that minimizes it, but in a way that keeps you empowered, that keeps you excited, that keeps you enthusiastic, so that your rage and your despair can be focused like a laser beam exactly where it needs to be focused to make change. When we all play this game together and we do it consistently, we can have a massive impact on our world.